Next up, we got Wimpy Kid, Old School. How many more do we have? Let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Only 6 more from this series. I know it's a lot, but we'll get through it. He's got some technology. That's an interesting font for a Wimpy Kid title. Let's see what this one's about. Life was better in the old days. Or was it? That's the question Greg Heffley is asking as his town voluntarily unplugs and goes electronics free. Is that allowed? Could a town enforce that? But modern life has its conveniences, and Greg isn't cut out for an old-fashioned world. With tension building inside and outside the Heffley home, will Greg find a way to survive, or is going old school just too hard for a kid like Greg? Wow, that's a crazy concept. They're gonna ban technology in his town? Can they do that? How are they gonna do that? I guess I'll find out in just a second here. Dario Wimpy Kid Old School. Susan Heffley did it. She got the entire town to ban technology for a short time, which... wow. Susan, I'm sorry, this one left me a little speechless, but I will say this one might have been one of my favorites. It was a good one. And once again, Greg kind of reacted responsibly. He acted reasonably to all the bonkers stuff that was happening to him. Of course, he is Greg, so there are some notes I took about his behaviors, but let's get right into the list because this was a crazy one, and I'm gonna need my list to recall it. Alright, so as I mentioned, Susan manages to get the neighborhood to stop using their technology for a week, and she succeeds in getting the petition signed. She takes it to the town hall and enforces a little technology drought, which it's none of her business, and I don't know how this town even enforced that, but it happened, and we'll get to that later. There was this program where middle schoolers can get matched with an elementary schooler, and the point was the middle schooler would help the younger kid with their homework and be a positive influence as an older companion to them. And Greg gets paired with this third grader called Fru, and Fru is like a child genius, your young Sheldon type. So while Greg can't really help Fru with his homework, what he does is get Fru to help him with his middle school homework, which is really funny, but I don't know if it's super psychopathic of Greg, because Fru seems on board to do this higher level work. He's even going above and beyond to really educate himself with Greg's homework. And here's when it gets crazy. Of course, Greg can't just let someone else have something. He says he discovered this child genius Fru, and that if he ever does anything great, wins an award, does something super smart, then he should get a cut of that credit or award if Fru discovers something amazing. Greg's grandpa, who is also a crazy character, awful man, has to move in because he broke up with his girlfriend, and so Susan gives him first pick of whatever room he wanted. And guess who this old man picks? Greg's room. So Greg has to be kicked out of his room for the foreseeable future because of this grandpa character. And in the end, he ends up sleeping in Manny's room for a while. And Manny might be taking advantage of this by making Susan read really long bedtime stories during this period of time to keep Greg up for the maximum amount of time. His dad is upset that his mom is taking such careful care of him and kind of babying him, spoiling him. So he takes away Greg's to-do list, which Susan made for him. And this is so bad for Greg, because in this list it had basic things like showering and brush your teeth and putting on your socks and shoes. And he does the socks and shoes out of order. He puts his socks on over his shoes and goes to school like that. Like, how do you leave the house like that? How do you not notice? From Greg to Susan about being crazy, awful people. Roderick gets a job at a restaurant, taking out the trash. So Susan gets the entire family to go to this restaurant to, I don't know, embarrass Roderick, see Roderick. She just wants to see Roderick because she can't let him be alone just for one small shift. And she can't find Roderick around, so she goes to the manager and demands to know where he is, where he tells her he's outside doing the trash. And Susan says Roderick shouldn't be doing the trash, he should be on the floor with customers because he's such a good worker. Like, she knows better than this manager. And the manager says what you would expect to say. Everyone starts out at the bottom, you have to work your way up. It got so bad that Susan wanted to see Roderick during work. She lied and said it was Manny's birthday, so the entire cast, including Roderick, would come and sing happy birthday, which, ugh, she might be my new least favorite character. Discord notification going off. Oh no, oh no. Anyway, Greg and Rowley open a lemonade stand during a heat wave, and they only use one cup. So if you buy a cup of lemonade, you gotta watch them fill it up, drink the cup, and give it back to them. And that's super unsanitary, gross. Greg says they wash it out every time, but that's still a crazy health hazard. Also, they're on a little hill, on their lemonade stand. So Greg had the idea if they're going up the hill, they'll be more tired and lemonade's $1. But if they're going down a hill and they're less tired and less desperate for lemonade, it's only 50 cents. Anyway, during this time where technology isn't allowed in the neighborhood, which again, how does Susan enforce that? They're fixing up an old park and making everyone in the community participate in this little construction project. And Greg wants a little break, so he runs off into the nearby woods. And who does he find? None other than Fru, his third grade buddy. And they're both talking about how they hate working on this playground. And someone else comes around, and it's somebody doing community service, a little teenage prisoner in a jumpsuit. Maybe he's about 20 years old, Roderick's age. And so honestly, the three of them are vibing for a little bit, talking about what they have in common. I like this trio a lot. Fru, Greg, and this prisoner. They were a fun trio. But anyway, the construction crew, including the Girl Scouts, come up and track them down. And when they finally get caught by Susan Heffley and the Girl Scouts and everyone who was looking for them, Greg blames it all on the prison inmate, which is really stupid of Greg. You can't just blame a dangerous person like that. That's gonna come back to bite you. And it does. Bouncing back to Susan, Greg's mom was worried about her son's self-esteem issue, so she makes Greg's teachers give him little notes, and the teachers say he has to deliver the notes to another teacher as a secret important mission to make Greg feel important. And one day, during these secret missions, Greg opens the note to see what's so important he's delivering and finds a blank page, which ruins his self-confidence even worse than if this activity was never done in the meantime. Another thing that happened, I gotta deal with a lot of backstory before I get into this little Girl Scout situation. Long story short, because Greg drops his toothpaste cap into the sink, him and his grandfather get into a car accident and total their dad's car. And because of that, Greg decides to go to a little summer camp so he could be away from his dad for a while so he could cool off before getting mad at him. And this summer camp is so bad. There's a rumor about a zombie farmer that eats people, horrible living conditions, the food is gross. There's a soup pot that they make everybody put their leftovers in after every meal, because according to them, no food goes to waste. So they just keep on recycling food and soup. One of the students pulled out an entire taco from their soup, which was the end of Greg's eating for that summer. And it's so bad, there's people trying not to get sick on purpose to go home, and one boy manages to make themselves sick by eating a stick of deodorant so they can be picked up and go home. But here's the thing. Since that happened, the leaders of the camp, the chaperones, they confiscate all of the deodorant from the boys. So now Greg is stuck in a little cabin with a bunch of sweaty boys where deodorant isn't allowed. So him and his little cabin devise a plan to sneak into the girls' cabin and steal their deodorant so they can wash up. So they do that. They try to break into a girl's cabin for deodorant and end up breaking into a cabin full of little young Girl Scouts, and one of the fatter kids falls in the building and makes a giant thud sound, waking everyone up. So that's how they get busted, and they're not allowed to leave the cabin anymore. And since they can't leave a cabin, they need an emergency chaperone to come and keep an eye on these rowdy boys who are breaking into Girl Scout huts and whatnot. I guess I should mention that the first chaperone they had got poisoned, which is why they were without a chaperone to begin with. But anyway, who was the emergency chaperone other than Greg Heffley's dad himself? Which I could only assume that Susan forced him to do it. So now Greg is stuck with the dad he was trying to escape from in the first place, and now they're in a sweaty cabin with gross food and even grosser boys. Greg is out in the woods trying to find firewood to make them a fire, duh, and he finds an abandoned shack. And this shack, it's rumored to be the base of that zombie farmer who was eating campers and killing people and all that stuff. And so Greg decides to explore it so he could finally put this rumor to rest for good, because he's tired of everybody believing it. So he walks into the haunted shack, and he realizes the lights are on, there's running water, it's very clean inside. And who does he find in nothing but a towel and wet hair other than his father? At first, Greg is confused, but Frank Heffley, his dad, says he's the one who started the rumor when he went to this camp so long ago of this zombie farmer who was dangerous. He did it because he found this janitor hut that was used to clean the camp when it was off season. It had nice toilet paper, nice running water, and nice shower. And he used that when he was a kid to wash up when no one else could. And over the years got run down and the outside got all beat up and boarded up. But Frank went to check to see if the hut he used in his childhood was still up and running. And it was, so he was still taking advantage of it. So all of this discourse in the camp about the zombie everyone was fearing was started by the Heffley family, which is really fun. And so Greg returns to his camp, confirms that the zombie farmer is indeed real, so he could keep his bathroom secret to himself. And when he's leaving the camp, he tells the next group of kids to beware of the zombie farmer who eats people, continuing the cycle. He says if he ever has kids, he's gonna do the same thing and use that janitor hut to shower himself if he's ever back there. So yeah, this one was madness. Susan somehow influenced an entire town to put away their technology. Greg goes to an evil summer camp where they do unsanitary things to these children, make them eat slop, leftover food, make them shower in lake water. Ugh. And in the end, it turns out Frank Heffley was a big part of the lore of this camp. This might have been my favorite so far. This was a funny one. So yeah, we're still working through our Diver Wimpy Kid books. And yeah, thank you for making it to the end of this video. I'll see you for the next one.